go. Hi. Hi. Happy Saturday. Hello, hello, hello. Thank you. Yeah, I was bored. I needed to like upgrade it. I was going a little crazy. So, a little bit of manic panic. And we're all good. Hi, how are you? So, we're just gonna dive on into it. So, we are, let me do that. So, we are wrapping up the Major Arcana, which is weird. I feel like we're like ripping through this, which is crazy. But I'm really here for it. So we are wrapping up the Major Arcana, which means we are on our last 3 cards. So we have split this up between the women of the Major Arcana, the men of the Major Arcana, the liminal space in the Major Arcana, you know, those places that exist between polar opposites. And then finally, we get to the last 2 polar opposites and the one that stands to mediate between the 2 of them. So finally, in the Major Arcana, it returns to its balance. As we go out of that liminal space, we get back into balance, masculine, feminine energy. We see it in the sun and in the moon. So divine masculine energy is all over the sun. It is everywhere in that card. And then the mysterious divine feminine is all over the moon. This dark light, man, woman, fire, water, structure, freeform, conscious, subconscious, magician, high priestess, emperor, empress. You're seeing where I'm going? That's kind of what we get in the moon and the sun when they sit together like this. And the one that helps us understand which ones we're supposed to tap into at which time is judgment. Judgment is the teacher, it's the mediator. It also helps us trust ourselves also with the judgment card, I tend to find. So we're just going to kind of get on into it. We're going to start with the moon, yeah? So for the moon, that is not my water. I almost tried to drink that. That would have been a bad idea. So as always, every single card gets a little card prompt. That's kind of how we start this. So the card prompt for the moon is, what is your relationship with your shadow? Are you home there, or do you avoid it at all costs? So that's an important question to kind of think about when we're working with the moon. So if you're looking for a simple yes, no, it is a no. There's a big no if you get the moon. Big no. Usually because there is bullshit afoot. There are delusions in place. Whether they're your delusions or somebody else's delusions, there are delusions going on. Obviously, the planet associated with the moon isn't a planet, but it's the moon. Very specifically, it's very Piscean energy, which is weird because the moon rules Cancer, not Pisces, but the energy of the moon and the story of the moon and all the shit that's going on with the moon is very, very, very Piscean. So the energy of this card is Pisces, but the moon rules over Cancer. Don't let it make you confused, as confusing as it is. Now, the deities that we tend to find associated with this card are going to be Anubis, Selene, Artemis, Poseidon, Luna, and Diana. And Neptune. No angels associated with this card, at least not that I know of. Now, the moon is number 18 in the tarot deck. That is humanitarianism, tolerance, efficiency, philanthropic actions, and self-determination. So that's what we see in number 18, just in numerology. Now, the energy of the moon is very weird. Specifically, the symbolism on the moon is really weird. It represents so many things, and I'll kind of start to get into it. So on the main imagery of the moon, we have the moon up in the air. We have these 2 pillars, these 2 towers kind of like next to it. And then, you know, there's this like crayfish coming out of the water, and there's this wolf and this dog, and they're howling, and it's weird, and that's kind of the whole point. So the moon that we see up in the sky on the card is meant to represent our intuition, our dreams, the unconscious. Unlike the sun's bright light that kind of like reveals everything, the moon can really only show us so much at any given time. Also, the pool of water that's at the front of the card is that watery subconscious of our mind. And, you know, the crayfish that's usually seen crawling up out of the water shows the early stages of consciousness starting to unfold and come out of the subconscious. The dog and the wolf at the front of the card that are both howling, this is meant to show our wild and our tame sides kind of like working together in this like place of synergy. This card is meant to be confusing and overwhelming. That is the point of the imagery. If you look at it and go, what the fuck? Yeah, that's kind of the point. It's how you're supposed to feel, because that is kind of how the moon makes us feel in everyday life when we're kind of going through dealing with it. Now, upright, if you are a keyword girly, I got you. So upright, we see, talking about seeing stuff. Upright, we see illusions, fear, anxiety, intuition, subconscious, spiritual awakenings, and repressed gifts. So in the journey of the Fool, we can get too comfortable. That is very fair. Especially in the calm energy of the star. We can lose ourselves in the moon's illusion. So, you know, if we stay in the star for too long, we start to kind of drift into the moon. The moon stimulates our creativity. It allows for bizarre and beautiful thoughts, and it's the weird side of creativity. You know, the moon kind of covers all of that. But with the moon, we can also see anxieties and fears, especially ones that we have repressed. With the moon, they tend to really kind of come up to the surface and start to haunt us a little bit. It's really important that we keep in mind that if we rest or if we stay still for too long, we run the risk of turning stagnant. It's also really important when you get the moon card to ask yourself, are you projecting past fears onto your present future? For example, you know, like I had a friend go through something like this. If you get into a car accident, you know, my friend got into one when he was really young. He was like 5, and he did not remember it. For years, he didn't even know he was in a car accident. But every time he got in the car, he always had to be the one driving. And it was this like weird thing about him I knew ever since we were kids. He always had to be the one driving. If he was not the one driving, he would get really anxious. Like I remember one time we went on a road trip for like 7 hours, and he drove the whole way. He was like, no, it's fine, I got it. And none of us knew why. And we finally were talking, and I was like, Greg, why are you so weird about like other people driving? Why does it make you so anxious? And he was like, I don't know. I get really uncomfortable. And I was like, okay, that's weird. And I guess I like planted a seed in his head, because he went home later and brought it up to his mom. And then he ended up finding out his mom was like, oh, well, it was probably the accident. He was like, what accident? Lo and behold, he finds out he was in a car accident when he was like 3, 4, 5 years old. And he didn't realize, but he was still holding on to that fear and that anxiety and that stress. He had repressed it really, really hard, but it was still like leaking out in these ways that even he didn't fully understand. And that is a really good example of the moon and how it can kind of tend to work with us. It's really important to connect your subconscious and your conscious, and you have to address the things that you have repressed, especially when the moon comes out. Be careful making quick decisions. This is not really the time to be doing it. The moon brings illusion and uncertainty, and it's really that's not the best environment to be moving too quickly. When you pull this card in readings, the moon can be very, I know something you don't know. Like it can really kind of have that energy. Usually it If I pull this, I joke that sometimes that the deck just doesn't want to tell me, or that like the deck is being a brat. Those are sometimes ways that it can kind of also come out. Sometimes it's just saying, no, I'm not going to tell you the answer because you're asking the wrong questions because they're rooted in illusion. You know, like if I were to, let's say, like pull my tarot deck aside and be like, what do I need to do to be good enough? I'd probably pull the moon, because it would be like, I'm not going to tell you the answer to that because you're asking the wrong questions, and nope. And like that would be a way that like the moon might respond. Trust your intuition to see what can't be seen. Feel your way through things. This is a connect to divine feminine moment. This is not a divine masculine card. This is all about like, I don't know, I just have a feeling. Like that phrase, that is huge in this card. Now, when this card comes in reverse, we see a release of fear. We also see repressed emotions, and we see inner confusion. So you might not be so confused about what's going on around you. You might not be so confused about your situation or your environment, but you might be very confused about yourself and why you do things the way you are, or why you act the way that you do. And that's usually what we tend to see when the moon's in reverse. Usually when this card comes in reverse, all the fear and illusion might be subsiding, or you might just be starting to work through them and like processing your fears. It's really important to understand the impact that those fears have on us, and that's how we can end up freeing ourselves from those things. You know, if you're repressing something, it's really only going to work for so long. And sooner or later, the upright moon is going to come along and is going to pull this out of you and is going to make you face it and is going to make you deal with it. You know, when the moon's in reverse, it's important to kind of check yourself and be like, if the upright moon were to come for me right now, what would it reveal? If, you know, I ask myself as someone who knows that the moon is this really uncomfortable card of revelations and of dispelling illusions, I will ask myself, like, if I pulled the moon on myself right now, what do I think the moon would dispel? What illusions do I think would go away? And the answer usually comes to our mind. We usually know. Whatever lies we're telling ourselves, whatever, you know, we usually know. And the moon in reverse is going to ask you to do that soul searching and to find that out before the universe has to show you. It'd be much easier if you just did it on your own. It's really important to listen to your inner guidance, but also in a much less intense way that the moon can show itself. Sometimes the moon comes around because you are receiving intuitive messages. If it's in reverse, you probably can't make much sense of them. They might be overwhelming, they might be confusing, you might not know what exactly they're getting at. Again, it's really important to just kind of sift through the information as you go. You know, again, the moon is all about dispelling illusions and fear and bullshit. So it's really important that you take the time to do that soul searching. The moon is a card of introspection and looking inward. Again, you know, it's all that conscious and subconscious. You're going inward. Now, in very opposite directions, the sun is all about going outward. So we're going to move on to the sun. So the little journal prompt that I have for the sun is, where may shining a light on your life feel unwelcome? Why? Despite the resistance you feel, is it needed all the same? How can you begin this? So if it's a yes or a no, the sun is a very big yes. Obviously, again, the planet it's associated with is not a planet, it is a star. It is the sun. The deities that we see connection to this card are Ra, Helios, and Apollo. Ooh. Sorry, did not mean to drop you guys. The angel that you see connected to this card is Archangel Uriel. They are the angel of wisdom and truth. They're believed to shed light onto the truth. The sun is number 19. So in numerology, 19 is the number of ego, humanity, energy, rebirth. It shines a light on everything. That's the number of 19. Now, the symbolism for the sun is not as weird as the moon, but it is probably just as busy. There is a naked baby on a horse having a great time, just riding the horse. There's usually the sun in the air. There's all these flowers. Everything's blooming everywhere. It's really colorful and it's really intense. Now, in this symbolism of the card, the sun is the source of all life. It represents everything. The 4 sunflowers are representative of the 4 elements, the 4 fixed zodiac signs, the 4 cardinal directions, and the 4 suits in the minor arcana. The little kid on the card is a symbol of joy, new life, fresh starts, a connection to our inner spirit. The fact that he's naked is a sign of vulnerability, innocence, and purity. He's got nothing to hide, because why would he have anything to hide? Because he's like 3 years old and he does not think there is anything to hide. And finally, the white horse that he rides on symbolizes purity and strength. Now, if you get the card upright, the sun is positivity, fun, warmth, success, vitality, abundance. The sun dispels confusion and the illusions of the moon. It kind of comes in and sweeps all of it away. It directs the moon's imagination and it shows the goodness in the world. The moon thinks of all these things, and if some of those things are wrong or built in illusions, the sun dispels it. And if some of those things are worth putting energy into, then the sun puts energy into it. Now, a lot of the times...
Do you have a Stranger Things deck and a Villains deck over there?
Does she? Let's find out.
Hold, please.
There we go. Quiet that a little bit. Walkies are so loud, sorry. So like I said, it brings this vibrant energy and enthusiasm to things. God, that was so distracting.
I'm looking for the store copies of Stranger Things and the Villains.
Oh, there is another one down here. That's what that was. There we go. There was another walkie-talkie and I did not even see it. Anyway, sorry about that. I had to go find that. Otherwise, that was going to distract me for the rest of the class. So like I said, it brings this vibrant energy and enthusiasm. It is a new day. It's fresh starts. We tend to see that people are very drawn to the sun card and its energy. No matter where the little kid on that card goes, positivity follows. There is warmth. Usually when we get this card upright, we are being called to address our fears, dispel them, and walk into, again, this new day with confidence and light. You are being invited to share your qualities, your shining qualities and your achievements with the people around you. If times have been tough, the sun promises that things will get better. And not only just better, the sun is not just a reprieve, but it brings joy, it brings light, it makes things a little easier. The sun helps us find the silver lining, and it promises that everything's going to work out. It connects you to your power, not your fear-driven ego, not that side of yourself. It connects you to that inner fire that's always kind of burning. Now, in reverse, we see that this is your inner child. Sometimes it is feeling down. It's also being overly optimistic. Now, when the sun is in reverse, you are being called to allow your inner child out to play. Don't forget how to have fun. Sometimes we really can. This is your permission slip to leave responsibility for a little bit and just kind of let yourself breathe. You may have been struggling to see the bright side of things. You may have been struggling to just let go and have fun and not take things so seriously. But maybe setbacks damaged your enthusiasm. it's really important to keep in mind that the sun is never a negative card. There is always hope in it. So if you've been feeling down, again, if you've had setbacks, if your light has been kind of put out a little bit, the sun promises that this is just a temporary thing. It's just a speed bump in the road, and it can be really easy to get discouraged by speed bumps when there are what start to feel like too many. But it's really important with my son to keep in mind that no matter how many there are, it is temporary. We will run out of them eventually. They will be gone. However, this card is also the reminder that we might be being too confident or too optimistic, and it's really important to rein ourselves in. We should have childlike wonder, not childlike naivety. I can never say that word. Naive. I can never say the bigger version of it. But that's kind of what we're looking for. We want the wonder. We don't want the, inability to sense danger. And finally, the last card that we're going to be talking about in the Major Arcana is Judgment. Now, the card prompt for Judgment is, where have you experienced a sense of calling in your life? Who or what bestowed it upon you, or did it come from within? Where did it lead you? Now, yes or no? This is a yes. The planet that it is associated with is Pluto, and I'm not going to get into arguments about whether or not Pluto is a planet. The deities that we tend to find associated with this are Neith, who is a goddess of fate, Osiris, and Hephaestus. And the angels that we see associated with this card are Archangels Gabriel and Michael. Now, this card is number 20. In numerology, 20 is all about relationships, teamwork, companionship, coexistence, and diplomacy. So the symbolism for the Judgment card is really freaking weird. The rapture is going on in this card. Archangel Gabriel is blowing his trumpet from the sky. People are rising from their graves, responding to the call. They're ready to be judged to see if they're welcome into heaven or not. All of this imagery symbolizes our actions coming into light and being revealed for who we are deep down, good and bad. All of that is coming to be judged. And the really big mountain range in the background shows the impossibility of avoiding that judgment. If anyone knows anything about the Book of Revelations, you know you ain't getting away from it. Now, when this card is upright, it is quite literally judgment. Not to sound repetitive, it's literally the card. Oh my goodness. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. God, I've had enough coffee to not be yawning. So it is quite literally judgment. The amount of times I pull this card and I have to tell people to trust their judgment, because that is usually what this card tends to tell us to do. It is a card of rebirth. It is a reminder to your inner calling. It is a card of absolution. Now, in the Fool's journey, he has been reborn. By the time we get here, he has shed his false ego. He has allowed his true self to come through. He forgives himself and others. He may regret past mistakes, but he knows that they are a product of ignorance, and he is ready to start over. It's really important to keep that in mind with this card, because that is really the energy that we want to be embodying as we come into it. We see ourselves clearly, and because of that, we can make the best decisions for our future. We see that in Archangel Gabriel blowing his trumpet, we see that we are called to higher callings, and it asks if we're ready to kind of follow our dream up into the world. Rise up, embrace a higher level of consciousness. You are usually having a spiritual awakening, and whatever kind of comes forward is for your highest good. So let it just kind of do what it's gonna do. I often call this cosmic upgrading, because that's kind of what it feels like. And oftentimes, by the time we get to judgment, this is not your first spiritual awakening. This is one of many. Judgment can also show life-changing choices that are starting to be made. And it's really important to use a blend of logic and intuition. if you're torn between two decisions and you're not quite sure where to go, tune into your higher self. And again, not to sound like a broken record, trust your judgment. And, it's really important that if you still need clarity, that you look back on your past lessons. Card is when the puzzle finally comes together. This is a card of having deep wounds and learning how to put the past behind us. The purging process usually tends to leave us ready to start again. And usually this is a card that will remind you that we usually, humans are social creatures. We tend to find comfort when we're in community and when we can share our struggle with a group that we can rise and grow with together. Now, when this card is in reverse, we see self-doubt, we see our inner critic, we see ignoring the call, reflection, self-evaluation, introspection, and a time to meditate. You may arrive at a place of understanding. You may be aware of the call, but have a deep, deep fear of being judged for doing it or for taking it. Work on self-forgiveness, self-acceptance, self-love, and release. When this card is in reverse, we're usually being called to find freedom from shame. The universe is trying to send us a message and invite us to something bigger, but we just aren't listening. And maybe that's because we're scared, or we aren't ready, or we're scared of the sacrifices that are going to be asked of us. All of those things are okay, but stop pretending like you don't see the opportunity. Make sure that you take it. Whenever you're ready, know that if you wait too long because you overthink, it will pass you by, and that is the product of choosing to wait too long. That is the consequence of that decision. But it's important to keep in mind that this call is never going to go away. The opportunity that is attached to it might, but a new one will come around in time. The call itself is never going to leave. It's only going to get louder. And again, it's, when this card's in reverse, you got to trust your gut. You have to shake off your fear and your doubt and your uncertainty. And you got to let yourself listen to yourself, because right now you are experiencing a lot of self-doubt and you are blocking out your inner voice. You think that voice in the back of your head that's like, oh, we can. Oh, no, what about the logistics? What about this? You think that's your voice. It is not your voice. That is the voice of everyone before you who keeps telling you that you can't do it. But those voices have just been up here long enough that they start to sound like our own, and we start to get that shit twisted. So it's really important to check in with yourself. Tune out what you have heard from other people. Now is not the time. Now is all about you and what you need and what you're looking for. And that is going to be it for the major arcana. We are going to really get into the minor arcana next week. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a taste, and that's going to be where I end it for this week. And then next week, we're going to really get into it. So in the minor arcana, we have many, many, many more connections to tarot's origins as a card game. You can really kind of see it in the minor arcana. The minor arcana has a very similar format to the standard playing deck that we all know and love. The minor arcana has 4 suits and 4 stages. The suits are the cups, the swords, the pentacles, and the wands. And if we take that over to the modern day playing deck, we see the hearts, the spades, the diamonds, and the clubs. And then we have the page, the knight, the queen, the king, and that respectively is the jack, the queen, the king, the ace. So we really see its origins as a playing card deck in the minor arcana. And it's a reminder that you should be able to read anything. A good reader can read anything, because it is not the tools, it is the caster that is the person doing all the good stuff. If you hand me a regular old bicycle playing card deck, I will be able to give you a reading. It will be different than using a tarot deck because there is no major arcana. It's like working with just the minor arcana, so it will be different, but I should be able to give you a reading. Hell, you hand me a handful of dominoes, I should be able to give you a reading. You hand me a handful of rice, I should be able to give you a reading, if you know how. So don't be afraid to look up other different types of divination. Don't be afraid to try things out. And honoring and understanding the origins of tarot is how we can best use it, not shying away from it. So lean into this. The 4 suits that we tend to see Again, the cups, the swords, the pentacles, the wands. They also represent the 4 fixed the 4 fixed zodiac signs, the 4 elements, and the 4 directions. So kind of breaking that down, the cups, the suit of cups is the element of water. It is the direction west, and it is the water signs. We see Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces. So the water, the cups rules over emotions, intuition, and interpersonal relationships. The swords is air for the element, east for the direction. The zodiac associated with it are Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. They are our thoughts and our tongues. They are how we think, how we speak, and how we communicate. The pentacles, the element is earth. The direction is north. The zodiac signs are Taurus, Capricorn, Virgo. It's our body. It represents our health, our finances, our career, our success, and our schooling. And the wands are our fire. That's our fire. That is the southern direction. That is Leo, Sagittarius, and Aries. And that oversees our passion, our desire, our drive, and our inner fire. So what can make breaking down the minor arcana really simple is, the minor arcana is the 4 suits. Each of the suits are broken up, numbers 1 through 10, and then they have their court. If you know the numerology of 1 through 10, or what the individual members of the court represent, that'll make it a lot easier. So for a perfect example, and we'll get into this as we keep going, let me think. So 7, right, in numerology, the number 7 is all about regaining control and responsibility. Now, if I take the 7 with the coins, which oversees our money and our school and our health, and I get the 7 of coins, I can assume, without even knowing anything about the card, that it's probably about regaining some type of physical or financial control. Now, when I tell you that the 7 of coins is a card all about investments paying off and hard work starting to pay off and our money starting to grow, now we can kind of see it. So if you really struggle with the cards in the beginning, look at the numerology, look at the suit, go from there, right? So speaking of the numerology, I'm going to go through numbers 1 through 10 with you so that you can kind of get a vibe for it. Now, it's important to understand that this is a journey. So usually, if you are at number 5, you have gone through numbers 1 through 4. So keep that in mind. So number 1, this is also in tarot, this is called the ace. So there is no 1 of cups. There is the ace of cups. So this is the ace. This is all about pioneering, leadership, new opportunities, dominance, and the origin of things. Number 2 in numerology is all about duality, togetherness, union, love, and balance. 3 in numerology is all about expansion, ideas, growth, and forward movement. 4 in numerology is all about foundations, power, stability, and support. 5 is instability, exaggeration, strife, loss, and changes. 6 is movement, balance, solutions, healing, and empathy. 7 is regaining or losing control, responsibility, and secrets. 8 is manifestation, ego, skill, business, and final decisions. 9 is strength, compassion, completion, optimism, and suffering. And then 10 is ultimate completion, final manifestation, and endings. So again, if you get the 10 of Cups, ultimate completion, final manifestation, endings, the Cups, intuition, emotions, interpersonal relationships, you can assume something involved with our personal life, our relationships, or our feelings is coming to an end, right? Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, whether we've like achieved it and we've hit the goal, or it's coming to an end because something is separating. We can assume that. Or, you know, the 10 of Coins, same thing. Ultimate completion with our money, ultimate completion with our health, final manifestation, endings. Maybe that is getting into your dream job. Maybe that's retiring. Maybe that's a legacy account. Maybe that's any of those things. When it's in reverse, it's probably losing those things. So again, if you're a little stuck on the card, this is a really good way to kind of start to get used to it. Now, finally, we're going to go into the Court, and that's going to be it for today. So the Court is the Page, the Knight, the Queen, the King. So the Page is young, energetic, very bright energy. The Page shows up at the very beginning of journeys. Possibly sometimes he shows actual youth. So sometimes the Page can suggest children, but that kind of depends on what you're looking at. The Page represents the idea phase of things. This is messages from the universe that invite us to action. There are new journeys to prepare for when the Page shows up. You know, the Ace, just like I talked about, will provide the initial inspiration. The Page helps us lay the groundwork, and then the Knight runs on it. And that's kind of what we start to see. So in the Knight, we see with the Knight is impulse. The Knight is quick thinking. It is extreme action. It is being very forward movement orientated. The Knight takes all of the ideas that the Page just thought of and puts it into motion. The Knight is more knowledgeable than the Page, and therefore it is more equipped to just kind of like go for it. But he does lack the experience of the Queen and the King, and as such can be a bit overzealous. If the Page represents children, the Knight tends to represent like teenagers. Then we have the Queen. She is more mature than the Knight and holds a deeper understanding of herself and others. The Queens tap into the nurturing energy of the divine feminine to create a more sustainable approach to life. She provides nourishment to keep the Page's ideas going and to keep the Knight's fires lit. She has a gentle, non-imposing way of persuasion. Queens influence everyone, usually without anyone knowing. Sometimes the Queens can also reflect rites of passage, especially for women. And then finally, the King. The King is the most mature. They have the deepest understanding of the way of things. They are the fully developed personality of whatever suit that they are ruling over. So to kind of wrap them all up, Pages conceive ideas, Knights act upon them, Queens nurture them, and Kings develop those ideas into a stable, fully established state. And that is kind of the rundown of the beginnings of the Minor Arcana. We will start next Saturday with going into all of the aces. And if we have time, we'll do the twos. We'll see kind of how that goes. But we are already almost done with this damn class. And that is crazy. I feel like we are ripping through this. But thank you guys so much for poking in. I will see you guys next Saturday. And we will keep kind of digging into this. So I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.